recognize former chairman of this committee, but current chairman of Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development, Steve Womack.
Go ahead, Mr. Bowman.
Thank you. Commissioner, thank you for being here today. And in my previous role as chairman of the subcommittee, I always enjoyed the fact that you were very responsive to, to the questions that we had, though this is your first hearing before this subcommittee. I got a quick question about taxpayer advocate service, and then I want to pick up on what Mr. Hoyer was talking about just a minute ago. As you're aware, the Taxpayer Advocate Service is an important organization within the IRS that assists American taxpayers who are experiencing financial difficulty, need help solving tax problems, or believe the IRS may not be performing as it should. It's my understanding that the Taxpayer Advocate Service, which my constituents heavily rely on, is struggling to keep up with demand. The fiscal 25 request for TAS is $236 million, but the 24 enacted was $271 million. So does the budget request address the need? Help me understand the difference between the enacted 24 versus the request in 25.
Yeah, there are choices that we need to make in terms of how we maximize the effect of the discretionary request we have of $12.3 billion. We can also provide supplemental resources to the taxpayer advocate using Inflation Reduction Act dollars to help close gaps. Anything that you see in the 25 budget, we are using Inflation Reduction Act to try to meet the demand. We don't always get all the way there. So we will work with the taxpayer advocate to help them manage demand. I mean, typically the better job we do with service, the less their phone rings. And so we can try to reduce some of the demand by improving our customer service, our ability to resolve taxpayer issues, and we'll also work with the taxpayer advocate to make sure that they are accessing other non-discretionary resources to make sure that especially hardship cases get addressed.
Those IRA funds, though, run out.
They do.
Eventually. 26, correct?
They do. So where we stand today is, for example, we've requested $2.8 billion for taxpayer service dollars coming up in 25. That would get you 25,000 FTE, but we actually need 38,000 FTE to manage the tax system. And that's just the number of phone calls, tens of millions of phone calls, the hundreds of thousands of people that come into our walk-in centers, all the paper that comes in that needs to be managed. So we are using IRA resources to close that gap, to get to that 38,000 FTE so that we can meet the taxpayer demand. But that IRA money runs out. It runs out in 26, and then we will have to shrink our customer service, and you'll see those lines start to emerge again at our walk-in centers and on the phones.
Yeah, and the $687 billion tax gap, first of all, I'm not sure how you calculate that. I'm sure you've got high-speed computers and experts that can, I mean, that's not a round number. That's $687 billion.
Yeah.
How much of that is owed by people, say, making less than $400,000 a year, which would account for the majority of tax filers, would be my guess.
Yeah, no, there is and I don't have that number at my fingertips, but as you can imagine, across that $687 billion portfolio, you have distributions of income. We have people that aren't paying their balance due at the low income end of the register and those at the high income. What we have set out as a plan is to increase our capacity and our scrutiny on high wealth filers, because that's where we fell the most behind during the lean years prior to the Inflation Reduction Act. We didn't lose as much capacity to assess balance due for simple filers, but we lost a ton of capacity because large corporations are operating in more tax jurisdictions, they're using alternative currencies, they're using more sophisticated methods. In some cases, not in all, we have CFOs and CEOs that are doing the right thing. but too often CEOs and CFOs that are not, and they are using sophisticated methods to shield their income. So the idea around the Inflation Reduction Act spend is to make sure we're investing where we need it the most. And where we need it the most is where we fell behind the most. And where we fell behind the most is complex filers.
I know I'm out of time. I want to pick up on something that Mr. Hoyer said a minute ago, just as a statement for the record, and that is, and I'm not going to pick on Optima necessarily, although their marketing's pretty good because that's the one I remember. But I too am concerned, and I've voiced this concern in this subcommittee before, that when you are driving down the road, listening to a sports broadcast, and you hear somebody come on and says, hey, if you owe the IRS, you're in good luck, call us, and we're gonna give you all this relief. And I just scratch my head thinking, wait a minute, I don't owe the IRS because I paid my taxes. And so why should somebody else get off the hook? So I've always had a little bit of concern about that. And then the last thing, and this would just be for a quick response. You know, in recent years, we've seen a lot of indications of identity theft, stolen numbers, those kinds of things, people stealing and filing false claims and what have you. In your modernization effort, has that tamped down somewhat? Real quickly, because I'm out of time.
Yes, it has. We are doing a more effective job year over year in avoiding identity theft situations. Where we have work to do is once you've been victimized, the line is too long to get help from the IRS, and that's something we're focused on fixing.
I thank the gentleman. I yield back.